I had just driven into the underground parking lot of the apartment complex, my mind still preoccupied with the tech firm's cluster of alpha projects. I was so exhausted today that all I wanted was to collapse onto the sofa at home. But the moment I opened the door, a strange smell of cooked rice and soup hit my nose. Lu Ruyan, my longtime wife, rarely even set foot in the kitchen. This smell was definitely not from her cooking, and my heart immediately lurched. I stood by the door, and the moment my eyes swept toward the living room, I froze. Two strangers were sitting on the sofa, a man cuddling a boy about 4 or 5 years old. They were casually watching TV with their legs crossed, looking completely at home. My eyebrows immediately knitted together, and my gaze fixed on the man. Just one look sent a sharp pang through my chest. It was Takedown, Lu Ruyan's dream man from college, the one she had desperately chased after. A few years ago, I heard he married the campus belle. Why is he in my house now? A rush of dark thoughts erupted in my head. Being cheated on, being played for a fool. Takedown heard the sound of the door, turned to look at me, and immediately stood up. He forced out a laugh, so fake it could be wrung out, extending his hand as if to shake mine. "Hello, Mr. Chibata." I didn't bother to lift my eyelids, pointedly ignoring his outstretched hand. My ice-cold gaze swept past him and toward the kitchen door. I didn't need to think twice to know this was definitely Lu Ruyan's doing. Sure enough, Lu Ruyan rushed out of the kitchen, her hands still covered in flour, her expression flustered, her voice trembling. "Chibata, you're back? Let me introduce you. This is Takedown, and this is his son, Minglang." I looked at her, dropping all semblance of politeness, my voice frigid. "Lu Ruyan, you bring another man into the house without discussing it with me first? What the hell are you trying to do?" The atmosphere in the living room instantly froze, so quiet you could clearly hear every sound coming from the TV. Lu Ruyan took a deep breath, apparently having prepared herself. She stepped closer to me, lowering her voice, tinged with annoyance. "Chibata, Takedown is in trouble. He has no place to stay, and I'm just letting him and his son stay for a few days. Can you please not be so petty?" I burst into an angry laugh, my voice suddenly soaring. "Petty? Say that again." "This house was bought with my money, and a name clearly registered as mine. Chibata, you didn't ask for my permission and dared to bring another man into the house, and intend to let him stay. Did your mother forget to drain all the amniotic fluid when you were born, leaving you with the gall to say such things?" Lu Ruyan's face flushed crimson, probably embarrassed by my scolding, and her lips trembled. "Chibata, you—" Before she could finish, Takedown cut in, putting on an innocent look and adopting a protective stance. "Chibata, don't speak to Ruyan like that. This isn't her fault. I came to her on my own. I was recently scammed into a marriage and now have nowhere to go. Ruyan was kind enough to let me stay for a few days. If you're uncomfortable, I can take my son and leave right now." Hearing him say that, I knew immediately he was deliberately trying to defend her. On the surface, he was explaining for Lu Ruyan, but in reality, he was subtly implying that I was bullying a woman. I was already furious, and now my anger shot straight to the top of my head. Get the hell out. Scammed into a marriage, my ass. Go online and see if any woman scammed in a marriage gives a man a full-grown child like that. You're clearly useless, a good-for-nothing, which made your wife leave you. Now you're crawling back to Ruyan, this idiotic woman, to lean on. I have to wonder, did your parents all die, forcing you to run to someone else's house to sponge off them like this, huh? Lu Ruyan immediately flared up, pointing at me and yelling. "Chibata, don't be so unreasonable. Takedown is my friend. He's in difficulty. So what if I help him a little? And you're even cursing his parents. You've gone too far." Seeing her stand up for an outsider against her own husband, the fire in my heart surged even more, my clenched fists shaking. This woman had truly trampled on my last boundary. My mind was burning hot at that moment. Without thinking, I raised my hand and slapped Lu Ruyan hard. Slap! The sound was sharp and deafening, and I hadn't held back any force. "Shut up, you wretched woman!" I roared, my voice hoarse with fury. "You defend an outsider and scold me back? Who the hell do you think you are?" The slap made Lu Ruyan stagger, nearly losing her balance. She covered her cheek and glared at me, tears instantly welling up. Seeing this, Takedown quickly feigned heartbreak and indignation, lunging forward as if to protect her. Lu Ruyan also put on a show of earnest pleading. "Chibata, how could you hit me? If there's a problem, talk about it properly." I looked at the man's hypocritical face, and the anger inside me felt like it had been doused with oil. I took a step forward and kicked him directly. One kick sent him tumbling backward onto the floor, his four limbs flailing in the air. I still wasn't satisfied. I stepped closer and kicked him twice more, shouting loudly, "You damn dog. So what if I hit my wife? You got a problem with that? Did you ask whose house this was before you came in? This house was bought with my Chibata's own money, got it? Lu Ruyan, and I don't even have a real marriage certificate yet. You dare barge in here without my permission. Who gave you the guts, huh?" Tangsheng was kicked so hard he was grimacing, wanting to get up but not daring to. He just lay curled up on the floor, groaning. Just then, the little boy, the son who bore a resemblance to him, suddenly shrieked in a clear voice, "Don't hit my bad dad." I turned my head to look at him. His eyes were red, his small hands clenched into fists, staring at me with a surprising spark of spirit in his eyes. But I was still blazing with anger at the time, and I yelled back coldly, "You little brat, if you're so good, come here and I'll beat you too," for the full set. As soon as I finished, Lu Ruyan, who had been about to argue further, saw the murderous look in my eyes and trembled in fear, covering her mouth and daring not to say another word. She quickly helped Tangsheng up and pulled the boy's hand. The three of them stumbled toward the door. Before leaving, Lu Ruyan even dared to turn back and glare at me. I yelled, "Get out. Don't you dare step foot in here again." Watching the three of them disappear behind the door, I let out a breath and turned to walk toward the bedroom. Pushing the door open, I saw my daughter, Qingxian, still sleeping soundly on her small bed, her face rosy and peaceful like an angel. I walked over and gently leaned down to kiss her cheek. In that moment, the anger in my heart gradually subsided. I was glad she didn't see the chaos just now. After Qingxian turned over in her sleep, I got up and went to Lu Ruyan's wardrobe. I opened the door, pulled out all her clothes, handbags, and cosmetics, and tossed them into several large plastic bags. I carried everything out into the hallway, dumped them in a pile on the floor, and even gave them 2 kicks for good measure. These pieces of garbage would only be an eyesore if they were left behind. Back inside the house, the first thing I did was change the main door's password and open the fingerprint lock settings, completely deleting Lu Ruyan's fingerprint. Once done, I leaned my back against the door and let out a cold laugh. "Lu Ruyan, I really spoiled you too much. Did you honestly think Chibata was easy to bully?" I pulled out my phone, intending to call my mother to tell her what happened, but then I worried about making her anxious. I thought for a moment and decided against it, telling myself to deal with it tomorrow. I went to the living room, dragged the sofa cushion where Tangsheng had been sitting, threw it straight into the washing machine, and then used disinfectant to wipe down the entire coffee table. Just thinking about the sight of him sitting in my house like the owner made me feel nauseous all over again. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind swirling with the events that had just occurred. What exactly were Lu Ruyan and I for the past 2 years? I treated her wholeheartedly, and I poured all my energy into our daughter. Yet, she turned around and brought her ex-flame right into our home. I must have been blind. Tossing and turning until midnight, I finally sat up, lit a cigarette, the smoke curling around my head. My mind was consumed by everything that had happened between Lu Ruyan and me over the years. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I was a complete fool back then. We went to the same university, and I had been pursuing her even before. Half of it was because her gentle and obedient demeanor was appealing. The other half was because we were from the same hometown, and I thought it would be easier after graduation, avoiding a long-distance relationship. But at that time, Lu Ruyan had no eyes for me. Her entire focus was on Tangsheng. Tangsheng was the campus heartthrob, refined and impeccably clean-cut. He, however, preferred girls with standout looks, so he bluntly rejected Lu Ruyan and turned to pursue the campus belle. Not long after graduation, he married her. At the time, I even felt sorry for Lu Ruyan. Now, looking back, it's true that the pitiable often have a hateful side. After graduation, I thought I would no longer have any connection with her. Who knew, ironically, that we would end up working in the same office building? He was on the 12th floor working for a design company, and I was on the 18th floor with a tech firm. At that point, Tangsheng was married, and I figured Lu Ruyan should probably forget about him. So I started pursuing her again. As a result, one time Lu Ruyan was scrolling through her moments, saw Tangsheng post a picture celebrating his son's first birthday, and she completely broke down right there, dragging me to a bar to drink like crazy. Now that I think about it, perhaps she had ill intentions even then. Once drunk, she proactively lunged at me, treating me as nothing more than a tool for relief. At that time, I genuinely liked her, so I didn't resist. But I still maintained a bit of caution and secretly recorded a video. After all, men need to protect themselves these days. Who knew if she would go back on her word the next morning? Sure enough, when she woke up the next day, Lu Rian pretended nothing had happened and even started avoiding me. I thought that was the end of it. Unexpectedly, 2 months later, she suddenly sought me out and told me she was pregnant. My head felt like it was going to explode. This melodramatic plot was more extreme than any TV drama. I asked her what she planned to do. Initially, she said she wanted an abortion, so I took her to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor's result was that her uterus was congenitally thin and weak. If she had an abortion this time, she might suffer repeated miscarriages later, even facing the risk of never being able to conceive again. Hearing this, Lu Rian panicked, cried, and said she wanted to keep the baby, even proactively proposing marriage to me. At that time, I was overwhelmed by emotion, plus she claimed it was her first time, so I agreed. But before we could register the marriage, something happened. I figured since we were getting married soon, we should be a little more intimate, and one time I couldn't help but kiss her. Unexpectedly, she flew into a rage, pointed directly at my face, and snapped. "Chibata, don't think that just because you used dirty tricks to get me pregnant, you can do whatever you want with me." It turned out she was shifting all the responsibility onto me, turning herself into the victim. I wasn't about to let it go. I immediately pulled up the video from that night and threw it in her face. "Tell me again who the unclean one is, who the active one was?" When Lu Rian saw the video, her face instantly turned pale, and she lunged at me, starting a loud argument. She accused me of having an evil heart. I didn't back down, firing back that she was slandering me. The two of us argued back and forth until neither of us would yield. Finally, I said decisively, "We don't need to get the marriage certificate for now. When you genuinely consider me your husband, that's when we'll register. That way, we won't have a messy drama if we divorce later." She had no other choice and grudgingly agreed. Afterward, to deal with both sets of parents, we ordered a fake marriage registration certificate online. I told my parents I wanted to live together first and would hold the ceremony later. As for what she told her parents, I only found out later that it was all fabricated. She told them I had committed to her long ago, but was too busy with work to make it official. After she gave birth, the baby was a girl, and I named her Chi Ching Xian. Looking at the tiny infant, I thought I should just let everything go and try my best to live well with Lu Ruyan, giving our daughter a complete home. But what was the result? As soon as her month-long postpartum confinement ended, Lu Ruyan was like a stranger, never bothering to lift a finger for anything. The child was entirely cared for by me and my mother. During the day, we went to work. In the evening, my mother cooked dinner, cleaned up, and then went back to her own house. Changing diapers, preparing formula, and soothing the baby to sleep, it was all done by me. And Lu Rian? She was glued to her phone the moment she got home, never looking up. When the baby was only 2 months old, she insisted on not breastfeeding, stubbornly demanding to use formula. She said nursing was too much a hassle. In just those few short months, the little bit of affection I had for her was completely worn away. No matter how ardent you are, pressing against a cold block of ice for too long will only leave you frozen. Occasionally, we would argue. If I made her cry and then tried to reconcile, actively kissing her or trying to take things further, she wouldn't resist. At the time, I was naive enough to think this was mending our relationship. Now, looking back, she simply didn't care. She was just too lazy to argue with me. So, I acted as both father and mother, raising our child until she was 2 years old. I even thought about going ahead and officially registering our marriage with her. Who would have thought she would hit me with a shocking blow, daring to bring Yi Tangsheng and his son into our home, treating it like a gift that was nothing short of an insult. Thinking of this, I stubbed out the cigarette in the ashtray, left only with a sense of relief. Thank goodness I hadn't truly married her. Otherwise, it would be much harder to escape now. The next morning, I called a tech firm to ask for a half day off, intending to go to my parents' house to clearly explain the fake marriage with Lu Ruyan. The moment I stepped through the door, I heard my mother, Zhao Shilan, nagging in the kitchen, while my father, Qi Jiangwo, sat in the living room reading the newspaper. The atmosphere was quite peaceful. I recounted everything without holding back, from Lu Ruyan bringing Yi Tangsheng home to the fake marriage certificate. After hearing it all, my mother was so angry she threw the cooking spatula into the pan, loudly scolding, "That little Lu Ruyan must think our family is a soft persimmon to squeeze. Bada, you did the right thing. You need to drive that kind of woman away for good. My father put down the newspaper, frowned, and said in a calm, steady voice, "Not registering the marriage is good. It saves the hassle of a future divorce. It's just that Qing Xian is still young, and it will be tough for you to raise her alone." I quickly said, "Don't worry, Dad, I can handle it." Unexpectedly, my mother immediately changed her tone, grasping my hand and saying, "Caring for Qing Xian is natural, but you can't stay single forever. I heard from Aunt Zhang that her niece is quite nice. Why don't you go meet her this weekend?" I was stunned. "Mom, I just broke up with Lu Ruyan. I'm not in a mood for blind dates right now." My mother glared. "It's precisely because you just broke up that you need to go right away. You're almost 30 and have a small child. You can't afford to delay. Your father and I have already made the arrangements." Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock, at the coffee shop. My father chimed in from the side. "Your mother is just worried about you. Just go and meet her. We could decide whether or not to proceed later." I had no choice but to reluctantly nod. If I argued, I would ultimately be the one who lost. The weekend arrived in a flash. I went to the coffee shop with the mindset of just going through the motions, chose a seat by the window, and ordered an Americano. As I took slow sips, I watched the flow of people outside, trying to figure out how I should tell the person across from me that I had a daughter, so as not to waste either of our time. After all, a woman willing to become a stepmother is truly rare these days. Not long after, a girl in simple clothes walked into the shop. Her hair was tied in a high ponytail, her eyes were bright, and she looked full of life. She walked straight towards me. I looked up and nearly knocked over the cup of coffee in my hand. It was Yu Wei. This girl was my childhood sweetheart, more mischievous than a boy since we were little. When we were kids, she chased and beat me every day, always demanding a little sister. When our parents refused, she would make me wear a dress and praise me for looking prettier than the other girls in our class. In high school, she got even worse, going everywhere telling people I was her girl best friend, which led to several younger male students sending me love letters that year, almost driving me crazy. That's why when filling out my university applications, I intentionally chose a city thousands of miles away from her, just hoping to escape the clutches of this little demon. Yet now, she was sitting right in front of me, smiling and saying, "Chibata, long time no see. I can't believe my blind date object is you." I was stunned for a long time before I found my voice. "You? Why are you on a blind date?" She picked up the menu, casually flipping through a few pages, and replied nonchalantly, "My mother keeps pushing me hard, saying if I don't get married soon, I'll become an old spinster." "What about you? I heard you had a lot of girls chasing you back then. So why are you on a blind date now?" It wasn't convenient for me to tell her about Lu Ruyan, so I just stammered past it. "Let's not talk about that." Then I added, my voice slightly hesitant, "Ah, right, I should tell you up front. I have a daughter named Qi Qingxian. She's 2 years old this year." I originally thought she would show awkwardness or avoidance like others, but unexpectedly, Yoyoe's eyes lit up, and she said quite naturally, "Really? I love kids the most. Can you take me to meet her sometime?" I was speechless. Her reaction was completely different from what I had imagined. After that, we didn't talk about the blind date anymore, just catching up on what we had been doing over the past few years. She currently works as a trainer at a gym, which explains why she looked even healthier and more energetic than before. We chatted until twilight before going our separate ways. On my way home, I kept thinking about little Yu Wei. After all these years, her personality hadn't changed, still doing everything in a way no one could predict. But I didn't think too deeply about it. I just considered it a chance encounter. After all, we used to be like sworn enemies. I never imagined we'd have any further connection. Meanwhile, Lu Rian returned to her parents' house, listening to her parents, Wang Lichuan and Lu Jigua, scold her every day, yet she didn't feel guilty at all. Sitting in front of the mirror applying lipstick, she examined herself and thought, "Chibata will definitely come to apologize. Every time we fought before, wasn't he always the one to back down first?" She convinced herself. He pursued me for over 3 years and treated me so well. He handles all the housework and doesn't make me lift a finger for our daughter. This time, it must just be temporary anger. When he comes to apologize, I need to play hard to get a little and tell him to make it up to me with a proper proposal. And I also need him to apologize to Yi Tangsheng. The man is so pitiful, scammed into a marriage and raising a child alone. What's wrong with me helping a friend? Chibata is truly petty. The more she thought, the more convinced she was that she hadn't done anything wrong. She even began to fantasize about the scenario after reconciling with me, completely unaware that in my heart, the relationship between us had already come to an end. On Saturday morning, I was playing building blocks with Qingxian in the living room when the doorbell rang. Thinking it was a delivery, I went to check. Looking through the peephole, I let out a cold laugh. Standing outside were Lu Ruyan and her parents, Lu Zhigua and Wang Lichuan. All three had grim faces. I subtly scoffed to myself. They finally showed up. As soon as I opened the door, her mother didn't bother with any courtesy, aggressively rushing in, pointing right at my face and yelling, "Chibata, have you lost your mind? How dare you kick Rian out of the house? When a husband and wife fight, you talk things out properly. How can a man be so small-minded? And furthermore, the two of you faking the marriage certificate to deceive us is simply outrageous." I leaned against the door frame, crossed my arms over my chest, not sparing her any respect, and said coldly, "Auntie, don't rush to scold me. You say I'm outrageous? Suppose you brought your old flame home to stay for a few days and then just gave my uncle a heads up. See if he doesn't kick you out the door." As soon as I finished, Wang Lichuan's face went pale, then turned a deep crimson like a pig's liver. She opened her mouth, but couldn't utter a single word. Lu Zhigua quickly pulled his wife's arm, forcing a strained smile to ease the tension. "Bada, don't mind Rian's mother. We're here today to talk things through between you and Rian." I cut him off, my voice icy cold. There's nothing to discuss. My gaze flickered over to Lu Ruyan, who was standing behind him. She was looking down, wearing an injured expression, looking as if I were the villain. I looked directly at Lu Zhigua, enunciating every word. "If you don't fully understand the situation, allow me to clarify. I lived with Lu Ruyan for 2 years. Did she cook a single meal for me? Has she taken care of our daughter for even one day since she was born? No. Yet, when Yi Tangsheng appeared, she was completely different. Cooking, cleaning, serving him attentively, more thoughtful than she was caring for her own father. Tell me, how can anyone tolerate a situation like that?" Lu Zhigua froze. Clearly, this was the first he'd heard of this. He turned to look at his daughter, his eyes filled with disappointment. Lu Ruyan quickly tried to justify herself. "Dad, it's not like that. I was just helping a friend." "Helping a friend?" I let out a cold laugh, taking a step closer to her. "Helping a friend by bringing a man into the house to live? Helping a friend by abandoning your own daughter to care for someone else's child? Lu Ruyan, try and consult your conscience and tell me if you and Yi Tangsheng are really just friends." Lu Ruyan's face went white, her lips trembling, unable to utter a single word in response. At this point, her father, Lu Zhigua, still wanted to salvage the situation. He sighed deeply and said, "Bada, I know Ruyan was wrong this time. I've already spoken to her about it. But think about what happened back then. And Ruyan hasn't pursued you over that. And she even made a concession by not forcing you to register the marriage. Can you please forgive her this one time?" I almost burst out laughing. "What happened back then? Are you sure you know exactly what happened back then?" I looked straight into his eyes, my voice slow and chilling. That year, Lu Ruyan was the one who proactively asked me out to the bar. After she got drunk, she was the one who initiated things. I was afraid she would wake up and turn around to falsely accuse me, which is why I recorded the video. I've deleted it from my phone, but there is still a copy in my cloud storage. Do you want to see it? I can open it for you right now. You still have that video?" Lu Ruyan immediately panicked, jumping up and shouting, "Chibata, didn't you say you deleted it? You truly are a despicable scoundrel." "I'm despicable." I looked straight at her, my gaze as cold as a knife. "Compared to the way you completely twisted things, turning white into black, how is it despicable for me to keep the evidence to protect myself?" Lu Zhigua and Wang Lichuan were utterly stunned, looking from their daughter to me, their expressions bewildered, completely unable to believe it. It was clear they had never known that the unexpected incident that year was actually initiated by Lu Ruyan. Wang Lichuan opened her mouth as if to say something, but I spoke first. "Uncle, Auntie, I'm going to tell you both straight up, there is absolutely no chance of me and Lu Ruyan getting back together. If you want to visit Qingxian, I won't stop you, but never mention reconciliation again. Qingxian already has one irresponsible mother. I cannot let her suffer another loss." Lu Zhigua looked at me, then turned to his daughter, who was hanging her head and not daring to say a word. He let out a heavy sigh, his eyes filled with helplessness. He knew that everything was beyond saving. Wang Lichuan tried to open her mouth again, but her husband gently pulled her arm. In the end, the three of them could only silently lower their heads and leave. When the door closed, I finally let out a sigh of relief. Qing Xian looked up, still holding wooden building blocks in her hand, and asked innocently, "Daddy, who was that?" I picked her up, gently kissed her cheek, and said softly, "Just strangers, darling. They won't come back." I knew the Lu family's trip was fruitless, and they would surely go back and question Lu Ruyan. But I no longer cared. From the moment she brought Yi Tangcheng home, everything between her and me was completely over. No one could mend it. Less than 2 days later, as I was sitting with Qing Xian watching cartoons, the doorbell rang again. I glanced through the peephole. It was Yi Tangcheng. He was wearing an old white shirt, his hair slicked back, clearly having groomed himself before coming here. I smirked coldly. Didn't get beaten enough last time? Now you're offering yourself up again? As soon as I opened the door, Yi Tangcheng rubbed his hands nervously and bowed his head, saying, "Chibata, I know I was wrong last time. I shouldn't have disturbed your and Ruyan's lives. You're a magnanimous person. Please give Ruyan another chance." I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame, not bothering to hide the contempt in my voice. Stop pretending to be kind. I know exactly what you're thinking. You just want Lu Ruyan to support you and your son, don't you? You've taken that piece of merchandise, so you better keep her. Don't let her go out and cause any more trouble, got that? Yi Tangcheng didn't expect me to be so direct. His face flushed, then turned pale, his hands and feet fumbling awkwardly. He opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't give him the chance. I turned and walked straight into the house, only saying one cold sentence. "I've said my piece. Get out of my sight. It's best you don't stand blocking my doorway and being an eyesore." Yi Tangcheng instinctively tried to step inside, but his foot recoiled right away. The injury from my kick last time must not have fully healed. He stood hesitantly at the door for a few seconds, then finally lowered his head, gnashed his teeth, and scurried away. He had only taken a few steps when I suddenly remembered something. I immediately grabbed a bucket of cold water I had prepared inside, rushed to the door, and dumped it straight over his head. Splash! The sound of the water hitting him was distinct. In an instant, Yi Tangcheng was drenched from head to toe, his hair plastered to his face, his whole body soaked like a dog that had fallen into the rain. He immediately whipped his head around, glaring at me, his eyes full of rage. I put my hands on my hips, deliberately provoking him. "What? You want to hit me? Go ahead. Dare to lay a hand on me today." I had already prepared myself. If he dared to strike, I would immediately fight back and call the police. The one who would suffer the loss would certainly be him, having trespassed and being the aggressor. But Yi Tangcheng only stood there staring at me for a few seconds. He clenched his fists and then released them, finally just bowing his head, gritting his teeth, and hurrying away. Watching his pathetic retreating figure, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. With that little bit of courage, you dare to fight me for a woman? Truly knowing your place. After Yi Tangcheng left, I pulled out my phone and called Lu Jigua. I had long realized that Lu Ruyan was not the brightest bulb, and reasoning with her was useless, but talking to her parents was much more effective. When the other end picked up, I spoke plainly. "Uncle, just now, Yi Tangcheng came to my house looking for trouble. Please tell Annie for me to discipline her daughter. If she continues to get involved with that guy, I will tell all the relatives about Lu Ruyan's dirty laundry. Don't blame me for not saving face then." On the other end, Lu Jigua was so angry he was breathing heavily, grinding his teeth as he said, "All right, that bastard. I'll go find Ruyan and sort this out." Less than half an hour later, a hot piece of news was recounted to me by my friends. Lu Jigua and Wang Lichuan, accompanied by several relatives, went straight to the small rented room where Yi Tangcheng was staying. As soon as they burst through the door, Lu Jigua pointed at his face and shouted, "You useless man, sponging off women. You live off my daughter, and you dare show your face here? If I don't beat you to death today, it won't be over." Seeing the whole Lu family in front of him, Yi Tangcheng's face went ashen. He was so terrified he glued his back to the wall, trembling and not daring to say a word. Just then, Lu Ruyan also rushed over, lunging out to shield him, saying anxiously, "Dad, don't be angry. Yi Tangcheng is looking for a job. He'll be fine in a few days." Wang Lichuan stood nearby and snorted coldly. "Looking for a job? I think he's scamming you, that's what. Everyone, don't waste any more words on this type of person. Kick him out." Hearing this, the relatives immediately swarmed over, shoving and shouting insults. The scene was so chaotic that his son, Yi Minglang, became terrified and burst into sobs. Lu Rian struggled to hold onto Yi Tangsheng while trying to soothe the little boy. The situation grew increasingly tumultuous. As a result, Yi Tangsheng was beaten until he was bruised and swollen all over, and his luggage was thrown straight out the door. Lu Rian tried to help him, but Wang Lichuan dragged her away by the arm, not letting her get close to him again. Afterward, I heard that Yi Tangsheng didn't dare to call the police. He knew well that if the commotion escalated to the police station, his unemployment and dependence on a woman would be exposed, and he would have no face left to show anyone. A few days later, he even called Lu Ruyan, his voice pitiful and weak. "Ruyan, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. You were scolded by your parents because of me. Maybe I should go talk to Chi Bada and ask him to let this go." Lu Ruyan must have been frightened by her parents' scolding. She only sighed and said, "Forget it. Chi Bada is so petty. Don't get involved with him anymore." When I heard that news, I was on a video call with Yue. She had come over again that day and spent the entire afternoon at my house playing building blocks and drawing with Qingxian. Looking at the two of them on the screen, one big and one small, smiling brightly, I suddenly felt a warmth spread through my heart. It turns out that when you are with the right person, life can be so light and comfortable. The suffocating days with Lu Ruyan before now seemed like nothing more than a joke. I truly didn't expect that little Yue would actually follow through. That day, when Lu Rian's entire family came to cause trouble, she was hiding in the corner of the hallway, eavesdropping. She later told me that she originally intended to rush out and help when I was cornered. But before she could make her move, she heard me tell Lu Ruyan that she was the one who initiated things that year. At that moment, Yue's eyes lit up, and from then on, she started scheming. A few days later, under the pretense of coming over to help me look after Qingxian, she stayed at my place until the evening. She even cooked dinner and opened a bottle of wine. I was still naive then, thinking she was simply coming to help. Who knew that halfway through the wine, she suddenly leaned close to my ear, her voice half joking, half serious. "Chibata, look, you're single. I'm single. And Qingxian even likes me. How about we become a couple?" I was stunned and hadn't reacted yet when she directly made her move. I am a man, after all, and my instinct was naturally to resist, but I only held out for less than a minute. In the end, I was forced onto the sofa, completely helpless. Afterward, looking at her triumphant face, all I could do was laugh and curse. This girl is still as domineering as when she was a kid. She burst into clear laughter. So what if I'm domineering? You won't be able to escape anyway. The next morning, she dragged me straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau to complete the marriage registration process. Looking at the photo on the red booklet, I felt both annoyed and amused. After circling around for so many years, I was finally captured by her again. After getting the certificate, I posted a picture on my moments, just the image of the two red booklets and Qingxian's bright smile, with no caption. The comments section instantly exploded. All my friends joked that someone had finally managed to tame me. I went to work at the tech firm the next day. I hadn't even sat down at my desk when Lu Rian blocked my path. She was wearing a floral dress I had never seen, lightly made up, her face haggard, likely from a lack of sleep. She tightly grabbed my hand, her voice choked with sobs, making the surrounding colleagues turn to look. "Chibata, can we talk? I know I was wrong. Please give me one more chance. I promise I will treat you well and take good care of Qingxian from now on." I frowned, strongly shaking her hand off, my voice ice cold. "There's nothing to talk about. I'm busy. Get out of the way." I intended to leave, but she followed me, her voice rising, even trembling with emotion. "Just a few minutes, Chibata. I know you still love me. Every time we argued before, you were always the one to apologize first. Why can't it be the same this time?" The colleagues' gazes around us grew increasingly strange. I didn't bother to be patient anymore. I opened my briefcase, pulled out the two red marriage certificates, and held them up in front of her. "Miss, look closely. I'm married. I'm a married man. I hope you have some self-respect and stop harassing someone who has a family." As soon as that sentence was out, the entire office fell silent, with only the slowly spreading whispers. Lu Rian's face turned crimson, from her cheeks all the way to her ears and neck, her eyes full of shock and humiliation. She opened her mouth to say something, but couldn't utter a word. In the end, she just covered her face and fled amidst everyone's stares. I put the marriage certificate away, my heart completely unmoved. If she had known this day was coming, why did she act that way before? From the day she brought Yi Tangchong home, She should have understood that a result like this was inevitable. I thought everything was over, but a week later, I received a court summons. Lu Ruyan was suing me for custody of Qingxian. When Yu Wei saw the document, she was slightly worried and asked softly, "Is this going to be a hassle? If Qingxian finds out, will she be affected?" I pulled her closer, held her hand, and said gently, "Don't worry. I have a way. I absolutely won't let Qingxian suffer any unfair treatment." I didn't rush to prepare for court. Instead, I first called Lu Jigua, arranging to meet him and Wang Lichuan at a coffee shop near their home. When we met, I didn't beat around the bush and placed the court summons on the table in front of them. I asked directly, "Uncle, Auntie, do you know that Lu Ruyan is suing me for custody of Qingxian?" Wang Lichuan took the summons, her face immediately turning pale. She shook her head repeatedly. "No idea. I truly didn't know about this. How could that child be so foolish?" I sighed softly, my voice calm. "I know you two love Qingxian, but try to think, has Lu Ruyan fulfilled the duties of a mother these past 2 years? If she can't even take care of herself, how can she care for anyone else? Moreover, if she really wins custody, carrying around a child like that, would she be able to find a husband later?" Lu Jigua's and Wang Lichuan's faces grew heavier and heavier. I continued, my voice slow but impactful. "If custody belongs to me, I will not ask Lu Ruyan for any alimony. You both know I'm fully capable of providing for Qingxian. Yu Yue also cares deeply for the child. She definitely won't let her suffer any disadvantage." As soon as I finished speaking, Lu Jigua sighed, his voice low. "Bada, I know you're a good man. We are relieved knowing Qingxian is with you. I'll go home and talk to Ruyan and tell her to withdraw the application." Wang Lichuan also nodded immediately. "That's right. Afterward, we can visit the child occasionally, and we absolutely won't interfere with your lives." Just 3 days later, the court sent a notice of case dismissal. I later found out that Lu Ruyan initially refused to withdraw the application, still clinging to the hope of reconciliation. As a result, Lu Jigua became furious and directly warned her, if she remains stubborn, he will cut off their father-daughter relationship. Wang Lichuan also agreed, saying, "If the matter really goes to court, they will stand up and testify for me." Lu Ruyan had no escape route and was forced to instruct her lawyer to file for withdrawal. When I received the notice of case dismissal, Yu Yue leaned on my shoulder, smiling brightly. "You're still the most powerful one. You solved it cleanly without even breaking a sweat." I wrapped my arms around her, looking at Qingxian playing with her toys in the distance, smiling radiantly, and my heart felt immensely relieved. All the previous frustrations were finally put to rest. As for Yi Tangcheng, from then on, all hope was lost. I heard that after being chased away by the Lu family, he still hadn't given up, deliberately letting himself catch a cold, intending to trick Lu Ruyan into coming to care for him. I could guess his motive just by thinking about it. He obviously wanted to cook the raw rice in a cooked rice and cling to Lu Ruyan to be supported. But he didn't expect Lu Jigua to anticipate this trick, directly locking Lu Ruyan in the house and not letting her out for a single step. Yi Tangcheng endured for a whole day, his fever soaring to nearly 40 degrees Celsius, with no one caring for him. In the end, he had to call the emergency services himself and was taken to the hospital, where he barely survived. Even more tragic was his son, Yi Minglang, who had no one to cook for him, starved the entire day, and eventually fainted, also being taken to the hospital with his father. After being discharged, Yi Tangcheng completely gave up on Lu Ruyan. He wasn't stupid. He knew her family was not to be trifled with, and staying would only bring him suffering. Not long after, someone said they saw him carrying a ripped backpack, leading Yi Minglang to the train station to return to his hometown. Later, I heard the news. He got home, left his son with his parents, and then wandered off again. A man who doesn't even care for his own son deserves such a consequence. After all those complicated matters were resolved, Yu Yue and I began preparing for our wedding. The day of the wedding, the sky was unusually beautiful. The sunlight was warm and golden, and the air was fresh. Qingxian, wearing a small, beautiful white dress like an angel, held the edge of Yu Yue's wedding gown, gently walking toward me step by step. Yu Yue was draped in a pure white wedding dress, her face radiant, her eyes sparkling like stars. I looked at her, and an indescribable warmth surged in my heart. In the past, to escape her devilish clutches, I deliberately chose a university far away. I never expected that after circling around for so many years, I would ultimately surrender into her hands. Life after marriage was even better than I had imagined. Yu Yue kept the house in perfect order, never complaining or sulking. Of course, whenever we truly argued, she still used her old method, striking first, but each time was a light tap, and I was content to give in to her. Qing Xian and Yu Yue were so close that outsiders would mistake them for biological mother and daughter. The little girl chirped every day, "Mommy, mommy." Her sweet voice melted my heart. Sometimes, I even felt jealous, pretending to be annoyed with Qing Xian. "My daughter, I am clearly your biological parent, you know?" Qing Xian would giggle, hide behind Yu Yue, and just peek her head out to give me a mischievous smile. Yu Yue would play along, smiling and saying, "That's your fault. Sometimes you act younger than she does." A year later, Yu Yue gave birth to a baby boy. I named him Qi Xingqian. Since we had an addition to the family, the atmosphere became even warmer and livelier. My parents and her parents often came over to help with the children. On weekends, the whole extended family would gather around the dinner table. My father and uncle you would drink and chat. My mother and aunt you would play with the two children. Qing Xian would sit with Xingqian playing with toys, and Yu Yue would sit next to me, smiling as she put food on my plate. That cozy feeling was something I had never even dared to dream of when I was with Lu Ruyan. As for Lu Ruyan, I only heard news of her through my friends afterward. She no longer contacted Yi Tangxing and didn't mention returning to me again. Perhaps her parents' scolding had shocked her back to reality, or maybe seeing how well I was living completely extinguished her hope. She quit her job at the old company and moved to another city. Initially, she would occasionally sneak near Qingxian's school, watching from a distance, not daring to come closer. But gradually, seeing that the little girl no longer showed any affection for her, she started visiting less often, eventually disappearing completely from view. Later, during a business trip, I accidentally heard old colleagues talk about Lu Ruyan going on blind dates for several years without any success. One time she met a construction boss who boasted of being rich, but made her split the bill when they ate. Another time she met a civil servant who seemed gentle, but demanded she cut ties with Qing Xian. Even when meeting the most ordinary men, she still compared them to me, saying that others didn't cook as well as I did or give gifts as thoughtfully as I did. But she forgot that when I was truly good to her, she didn't know how to appreciate it. I heard that she is nearly 40 now, still single, working as an administrative assistant at a small company. Every evening, she returns home only to be greeted by an empty room as her companion. Sometimes, she will open the only family photo of the three of us from back then, her, me, and Qing Xian. In the picture, I am smiling radiantly, while her face is vacant, devoid of any emotion. Later, someone mentioned that Lu Ruyan once admitted that she actually went to the bar that year with intention. She wanted to use that accident to force herself to accept me, but due to her unwillingness to let go of Yi Tangxiang, she ended up losing everything. When I heard that, my heart remained calm. The hatred and resentment of those years had long been erased by my current happiness. Now I have Yu Yue, I have Qing Xian and Xingqian, and I have loving parents. My life is peaceful and filled with warmth. As for Lu Ruyan, her regret and loneliness are all choices she made, and they no longer have anything to do with me. That evening, when I got home, Yu Yue had already prepared dinner. Qing Xian ran out and hugged my leg tightly, and Xingqian was lying in a stroller. I carried Qing Xian and sat down at the dining table, watching Yu Yue busy herself in the kitchen. A sense of indescribable peace surged within me. I thought that to have met Yu Yue in this lifetime and to have this home, that was enough. The painful events of the past are merely a dream that has faded. Once the dream is over, one should forget it. Living well in the present is the most valuable thing.